I got out of bed in the early hours of the morning in a daze, my mind still drowsy, my movements automatic. As I made my way from the bedroom to the living room, I heard muffled music. I thought I was home alone because my husband was on a business trip. But when I turned the corner, what I saw knocked me out. There on the couch was my stepson and his girlfriend. They were both naked and completely wrapped around each other. Not knowing what to think, I tried to avert my eyes from the sight, but I couldn't move. I was frozen in place. At that moment, his girlfriend noticed me and sat up with a smile. In a sarcastic tone, she said, "Won't you join us?" "The more the merrier," she asked in a teasing tone. My heart raced and my face burned like fire at her relaxed and uncaring attitude. I felt with every fiber of my being that this was wrong, but I didn't know what to do. Without saying anything, I hurried back to my bedroom, slammed the door, and locked myself in the safety of the room. But no matter what I did, what I had just seen would not be erased from my mind. I was leaning against the door, taking deep breaths. There was a strange confusion inside me, a feeling that both disturbed me and affected me in a way I couldn't make sense of. My whole body felt like it had been electrocuted. Everything was more sensitive than ever before. Somewhere deep inside, there was an emptiness or a longing that I couldn't define. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but I knew the source of these feelings. The scene I had witnessed had awakened something hidden inside me. My mind was overflowing with uninvited dreams. I found myself drifting into my imagination, but at the same time, I felt a great guilt. These thoughts frightened me, shaking my belief in who I was. "This is my stepson?" I thought, "and I'm married. I wouldn't dream of such a thing." But a little voice inside me kept nudging me. "No one will know. There will never be another opportunity like this in your life." This thought terrified me and made my internal battle with myself even bigger. I don't remember how long I stayed in that state. Maybe a few minutes, maybe longer. But finally, I was startled by the sound of the front door opening and closing. The laughter echoing in the hallway gradually faded away. I was alone now. At that moment, I realized I was holding my breath and took a shuddering deep breath. The spell was broken. The dense fog surrounding my mind was dissipating, and my common sense was slowly returning. But I was left with a gnawing wave of shame and regret. I couldn't stop thinking about how I would ever look my stepson in the face again, or his girlfriend. The scars of that moment remained in my mind like a permanent scar. I didn't know how to handle the situation. I promised myself to forget everything and never let anything like that happen again. But this incident shook me deeply. It made me question all my beliefs about myself. I had always believed that I was a principled person with strong values, but at that moment, I felt like I could throw all those values away. Now I can't help but ask myself, am I a different person deep down, or was this just a momentary weakness? I will never know the answer to this question, but I do know this. I can't share this secret with anyone. This shame will go with me to my grave. For now, I'll take a cold shower and try to recover. And then, as if nothing had happened, I'll go on with my life again. I'll resume my role as a respectable wife and stepmother. But deep down, part of me will always ask the question, what if? A few weeks after the incident, my life was slowly getting back on track. At least that's how it looked from the outside. I was going about my daily routines, acting calm and ordinary around me, but no one could see the storm raging inside me. After that disturbing encounter with my stepson and his girlfriend, I tried to avoid them at every opportunity. Even the sound of my stepson's voice disturbed me. His presence made me tense inside. As much as I wanted to treat him normally, the shame inside me prevented me from doing so. Every time I would visualize the image that was etched in the back of my mind. One day, my husband returned from a business trip. I was relieved to be reunited with him. I hoped that our life would be back on track, but the shadow of this secret was looming over everything. No matter how hard I tried to suppress it, it kept me awake at night. Even in the presence of my husband, I couldn't feel completely at peace. When he treated me as lovingly as ever, even when I tried to be sincere with him, my guilt built a wall between us. There were moments when I thought about telling him this secret, but each time I was afraid to do so, fearing that if he knew, it could ruin our marriage. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. My stepson came up to me and said he wanted to talk. He had a strange expression on his face, neither guilt nor relief, but a mixture. There was a wry sincerity in his tone. "You're still thinking about what happened recently, aren't you?" I was startled by what he said. The words caught in my throat. I didn't know what to say. After a few seconds of silence, I could barely say, "What do you mean?" "You know," he said with a slight smile. "That night, I saw it in your eyes. It wasn't just shame, it was something else." With his words, my heart began to beat like crazy. It was as if he knew all my feelings, all my secrets. I wanted to deny it, but the blush on my face gave me away. "Stop this nonsense right now," I said in a trembling voice. "I'm trying to forget what happened, and I want you to do the same." But he ignored my words and took a step closer. "I think it's useless to try to suppress things," he said sarcastically. "The deeper you bury it, the more it wants to come to the surface." I got up from my seat with anger in me. "That's the end of it. I don't want you to bring it up again," I said, and quickly left the room. But something inside me knew that this was not the end. That night I couldn't sleep again, my mind stuck on what he had said. Everything I had been trying to suppress came to the surface. I was angry and confused at the same time. I didn't know how to get out of this situation. The next morning, as I looked in the mirror, I made a promise to myself. I had to get to the bottom of this. I had to find a way to normalize my life and get out of this mess. But I had no idea how to do that. After that incident, the silence between my stepson and me became even more uncomfortable. Every time we met, the tension I felt hung in the air. Even when I sat on the couch with his girlfriend and heard them laughing, something inside me stirred uneasily. As much as I tried to suppress these feelings, the more I acted as if they were unaware, the more unbearable the situation became. My husband went about his daily life, oblivious to what was happening. When I was around him, the shame I felt gnawed at me. Several times I thought of telling him everything, but then I asked myself, what can you tell him? It would destroy him to know. Maybe it's best to keep this secret forever. But keeping this secret was not easy. I carried it inside me like a burden. Every night I was alone with these thoughts, these images that kept returning in my mind, haunting me. Sometimes I would relive the scene in my dreams and wake up in a sweat. One night, again struggling with insomnia, I made a sudden decision. This situation had to be resolved somehow. The next morning, I took the opportunity to catch my stepson alone. His girlfriend was out and my husband was at work. I finally decided I had to talk to him. He was in the living room working on his computer. I took a deep breath and called him over. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" I said, realizing that my voice was shaking. He looked up and stared at me. For a moment, he looked as if he knew everything. "Of course," he said in a calm voice. We sat down. The words were competing with each other to come out of my mouth, but I was struggling to get them right. "That night, what happened?" I said, but stopped before I could finish the sentence. I swallowed and tried again. "It has led us to a very strange place. We must forget it completely. It's something that will never be talked about again." A faint smile appeared in his eyes. "Forget it?" he asked. "Have you been able to forget it?" Suddenly, a wave of anger and shame surged through me. Look, this is something to be taken seriously. I'm a married woman and you're my stepson. There is no other explanation. But he remained calm. What makes me think, he said slowly, is what you are trying to convince yourself of. You tell me to forget, but how true does that seem to you? His words shattered my defense mechanisms. No matter how honest I tried to be with myself, my feelings about this matter were complicated, and he seemed to realize that. Look, I said, trying to control my voice, I can't let this affect us any longer. Everyone has to get on with their own lives. I want to protect my relationship with my husband, and I want to protect our family, so we're not having this conversation again. This is the end of it. At that moment, I wasn't sure if my words had reached him, but his eyes said so much without saying anything. He nodded slightly and left the room without saying anything. I felt a sense of relief, but also a deep sadness, like the emptiness that comes after a lost battle. I made a promise to myself. From now on, all my attention would be focused on my marriage and my family. But there was still a small fear inside me. Was this really the end? Or would this story continue in a different way?